class. Glad you guys are all excited to be here. And so today we're going to start our Unit 1 notes on, in the very beginning. So without further ado, let's get started on that. I need that. I need this. Okay, so the way notes are going to work this year is I basically am just going to talk to you guys. Watch show. So if you just kind of take a look at what we're dealing with here. This is Unit 1, and we're going to start from the very beginning with Pangea. Pangea. First of all, you guys already know what Pangea is because you learned it last year. Who can tell me what it is? It is. It was a very, 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 very long time ago because this is really pre-humanity, okay, when Pangea was happening. But we know that Pangea existed because of what geographic force? What makes the continents move around? Plate tectonics. Now, that sounds like these science terms. So how would this affect the growth of humanity? Not necessarily Pangea, but plate tectonics. Well, you have to think about humanity in general. So, where did humanity really begin? Where did humans begin? Where were the first humans? The Australopithecines. Do you not remember? What continent? Nobody remembers. Okay, well, getting back to Pangea, I'll tell you about that. 225 million years ago, all of the land on Earth was bunched together into a single continent. And that single continent was called Pangea. Gradually over time, the shifting and the folding of the Earth's crust caused the chunks of land to shift away from each other, creating eventually mountain ranges, oceans, and the continents that you see today. And this was a long, long time ago, okay? Africa is where the first humans existed, so you know. Okay, now, that was 225 million years ago. That's a long time ago. About 2 million years ago, there was an ice age. And I say an ice age because there's been a bunch of ice ages. This is just the one that's been the most recent. We refer to it as the Great Ice Age. I mean, over the Earth's, billion-year history, there's been a lot of periods of warming and cooling. And the period of cooling that is the most recent was the Great Ice Age. It began about 2 million years ago. When did it end? Anybody got a guess? I'm pretty sure we talked about this the last 2 years of history. About 10,000 years ago. What happened in humanity about 10,000 years ago? Wow, you guys are rusty. Whew. People stopped being, beating on their chest and grunting and living in caves to systematic agriculture and farming and staying in one place and not being nomads. That Neolithic revolution happened about 10,000 years ago. And part of it's due because, a third of the earth was not covered in a mile thick ice. It makes it kind of hard to grow corn in ice, especially a mile of it. Okay. Now, don't when we talk about the ice age, I don't want you to think that the entire Earth was covered in ice. Because it wasn't. Just the top part, the northern part of the northern hemisphere. Some projections have it coming all the way down to like Beckley. Other projections have it stopping in like Ohio. All right, basically the Ohio River Valley, the Mississippi River Valley, all those were created out of the Great Ice Age. In fact, there's a series of lakes right in the middle of North America that used to be 2-mile thick glaciers. Do you know what those lakes are? They're pretty awesome. In fact, they're even great. The Great Lakes. Yeah. They were actually glaciers that were miles thick. Like we're talking glaciers the size of Mount Everest. When they melt, they're going to leave some water. Well, that water's still there in the form of the Great Lakes. Anybody ever been to the Great Lakes? You flew over them. If you're standing on the shore of like just any of the Great Lakes, it looks like you're at the beach, the ocean. You can't see all. I mean, they're enormous. They're big. Okay, they have waves and everything. Pretty dangerous if you're on a boat, honestly. Anyway, when the glaciers begin to melt, they slide around and create river valleys and the Great Lakes. So all of this really affects people in a lot of different ways. With all the glaciers on Earth during the Ice Age, the sea level was low because a lot of the water was contained in ice. So if there's less water being contained in the ocean, how does that affect the land surface? Will there be more land or less land? There will be more land available. And because of this, there was one particular area over here between present-day state of Alaska and the present-day country of Russia that became exposed. Do you see this brown area? That became exposed. That was land. It was not, like today it's water. It's the Bering Strait. But then it became known as Beringia, or the Bering Land Bridge. And what happened is we mentioned that all humans, human life began in Africa millions of years ago. And as humanity began to spread, if it began here, how are they going to get here? They're not going to fly across the ocean or sail around. Basically, they begin to follow animal migrations. And during that great ice age, when this land was exposed, they just followed animals down into North and South America. And that's how the first humans came to America. They walked from Africa. Now, it didn't happen in a couple days. It took hundreds of thousands of years for them to go from being here to inhabiting the Americas. But it happened. And it happened as a result of the Great Ice Age. So it's a pretty important time. All right? Because what if it was the geography of today? Would they have walked from here to here? No. Why not? Because there would have been hundreds of miles of ocean to walk across. And unless, they're like certain people, they don't walk on water. Okay? So, the Great Ice Age was an important era in human history because of the fact of the way the geography was affected. Okay? So, you ever heard of this guy? Christopher Columbus. Where's he from? France? Good guess. He came in the name of Spain, but he himself was not Spanish. His real name is Cristoforo Colombo. Italy. He's Italian. He's from an Italian city called Genoa. He's an Italian seafarer. Now, what is Christopher Columbus known for? Please say something. Anybody. I don't care if you're wrong.
He sailed the ocean blue at 1490.
I love it, Chloe. Columbus sailed the ocean blue October 12th, 1492. And she's exactly right. That is what he's best known for discovering the Americas, the New World. Okay? He's given the credit for that. Now, why did he do it? Why leave the safety of Spain, which is where he left from, went to the king and queen of Spain, Ferdinand and Isabella, and said, hey, I think that we can do something. What did he tell them that we could do? Why do this? This is dangerous. And it's not because they thought the earth was flat. The earth is not flat. It has never been flat. And they never thought it was flat. Okay? Aristotle, in the year 2000 BC, knew the earth was round. This was 1492 AD. He knew it was round. And everybody knew it was round. That's a myth. Okay? So don't ever think that he wanted to prove the earth was round. That's bologna sandwich. Okay? That myth comes from 18th century literature, American literature, of course. All right. Anyway, so why? Why leave the safety of Europe and come to a dangerous place that he didn't even know existed?
Didn't he say that he defined a shorter way to India?
That's right. And why we want India? What's cool about India? What's so important about India? That's right. Products. The products that they could produce in India were in great demand in Europe. And Europeans wanted more of it, and they wanted it to be cheaper. Because in order to, I don't have a map. I have a map here. So okay. If you're watching from home, I'm sorry. I'm pulling out a world map and I'm pointing at India. Okay, so there's India, and here's Spain. If we want to get products from India to Spain, what are our options? What's the options? You guys know transportation, right? It's 1492. There's no airplanes. Okay, so we're going to get on a boat, and we're going to go like this. Easy, right? Hard. Especially down here, it's pretty treacherous around this part of Africa. Okay, it's very treacherous. Okay, what's our other options? Okay, we'll go put it on a horse or a camel, and what's wrong with that? Is it dangerous? Did you know that there were people who made a living off of just living, just waiting on the roads for people to come by and killing them and taking their stuff? Yeah, that's what they did, okay? That's also extremely dangerous, all right? So, Christopher Columbus, the Italian explorer, goes to the king and queen of Spain and look, I believe that if I sail west, I can make it to India. And it'll be quicker and easier, and I can bring boatloads of stuff back. It'll be a lot cheaper, and you can have all these luxury goods you want. All the silk, all the pepper. Pepper was actually, it's on every table and restaurant in America. That was if you had pepper, you were like Bill Gates rich in 1492, okay? And he's like, I can bring that stuff back, and it'll be super easy. Just give me some boats, and I'll do it. And they're like, well, okay. Because Spain at this time was like the America of 1492. They were the most powerful, wealthy nation on earth. Spain, okay? And so, Christopher Columbus, they give him 3 boats. What are the names of those boats? Nobody knows the names of Christopher Columbus's boats. Did you guys learn this in 4th grade? The Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. The Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Which one is the flagship? The biggest one that Christopher Columbus himself was on. The Santa Maria. So Ferdinand and Isabella give him 3 tiny ships to sail to the New World. After 6 weeks at sea, with his crew on the brink of mutiny. What is mutiny? What is mutiny? Ahoy. It's where they basically the crew loses faith in the leader and they just say, have a nice swim, Chris. And they kick him off the boat to drown. They were close to that. After 6 weeks at sea, surviving on rats that have been living on there. They finally see land. Okay, what is the land that they see? Nice and loud. The Bahamas. Okay, in the particular island in the Bahamas that they come across, he calls Hispaniola. He names it after Spain. Like, that's what Hispaniola means, Spain. And that was on October the 12th, 1492. Now, when he gets there, what does he say? Welcome to India. Hey, welcome to India. We made it. Awesome. Look at all those people. You know what they are? Indians. That's kind of how Native Americans are referred to as Indians. A mistake, an accident. Okay? Because Native Americans are not Indians because they're not from India. What do you call a person from India today? An Indian. Because they're from India. We don't have Indians. We're not from India. However, Christopher Columbus said, hey, this is India. Welcome. Well, where's the pepper? Where's the pepper? You guys got any pepper? What about gold? Well, what did they didn't really have any of that stuff. What did they have? Okay, they did have crops, without a doubt. Land. Did they have guns? Did they have swords? Steel? Iron? How'd they defend themselves? Bow and arrow, spears, sharpened sticks. So what did Christopher Columbus see that he could easily exploit from these people? The people themselves. Hey, we'll just enslave them. What are they going to do about it? I'm riding a horse, a beast of which they had never seen before, because horses are not native to Native America, North America. Literally, no horse had ever set foot in that world. I want you to imagine living a primitive life before Christopher Columbus came. You're just wearing your grass skirt, walking around doing your farming. And all of a sudden, this enormous wooden vessel comes out of nowhere. These large, hairy, pale men come wearing this enormous metal suit armor, like riding this enormous four-legged beast. They have these shiny metal sticks that can cut trees in half with one swipe, and they have this stick, and they hold it, and then it makes a really loud noise, and then people fall down and die. I want you to imagine, put yourself in that position. How scared are you? What are you going to do to defend yourself? I got my sharpened stick and my skirt on. And you're on a horse with a sword and a gun. And believe it or not, after all that, what was the most dangerous thing that they brought with them? Disease. All they had to do is not wear a mask. And they were dead, and they killed them. 90% of all the people alive in this half of planet Earth were dead in like 100 years. Not just because of old age. They died of disease. Okay? We're talking the death of 50 million people. Not just through, war and torture and slavery. Mainly disease. So, Christopher Columbus, I would make the argument, was the most successful failure in history. Because what was his goal when he left?
Discover a way to India.
Did he do that?
No.
Complete failure. Is Christopher Columbus a success? Yes. Like him or not, he has changed the world forever. Completely changed the world to this very day. The things that he established when he discovered the new world have changed the planet because of a system that gets created out of his discovery. Okay? The system that gets created is an economic system. What is the name of it? The Columbian Exchange. The Columbian Exchange. Europe would provide the markets, people that are going to buy the stuff. That's what I'm talking about. Eventually, Africans will provide the labor because those people that were already here, they do not prove to be very good slaves. Why? Well, I mean, you just go walk up to them and tell them what to do, and then they get sick and die. That's not a very good way of, it doesn't work, okay? Whereas these people, you can go talk to them, and they would be, they've been exposed to the same types of diseases that Europeans had. And so they had hardier constitutions, and they were less likely to die. And it's very sad. It's very sad. And not right, but this is history. It happened, okay? So the Europeans would provide the markets. Eventually, the Africans would provide the labor. And the New World is going to provide raw materials and new products. And things go back and forth. It goes back and forth. This will also be referred to eventually as triangular trade, but it's the Columbian Exchange. So items like squash and pumpkins, and sweet potatoes and potatoes, corn, tobacco, those things didn't exist in the old world. Can you imagine an Irishman who never seen a potato until Christopher Columbus? No, the Irish are synonymous with potatoes. Other things that came from the old world to the new: livestock, cows and horses. No cows or horses ever set foot here until the Spanish brought them. All right? Grains, wheat, barley, oats. And then the biggest, most devastating thing the Europeans brought with them, disease. And the biggest killing disease of all was smallpox. Smallpox was the biggest killer. But other diseases, the flu, measles, malaria, all those came from the old world. Did any diseases come from the new world to the old world? Diseases that had not existed there, but existed here? Syphilis. It's a bacteria. It gets in your brain. It's transmitted sexually. Okay? So New World plants begin to feed the European populations. Corn, also known as, you guys are amazing, maize, beans, tomatoes, potatoes. 3/5 of today's crops originated in the Americas. So, why were these diseases so dangerous to the New World people? How come the Europeans could be around it and die less frequently than the New World people?
Because the Europeans gained immunity.
That's right. Last year, you learned about how Europeans lived through filth and squalor and black plagues and other plagues and death and disgusting living conditions. And when your parents have lived through that, and your grandparents have lived through that, and your great-grandparents and their parents have all lived through that, guess what happens to their immune system? It becomes wildly strong. I mean, super strong. And they pass those genes down to their offspring. That is a real thing, folks. It's real. Okay? Whereas here, these people did not live in big, bustling, crowded cities with open sewers running through the middle of the streets and people throwing their bedpans out their windows. They lived in, the jungles. They lived in villages with small communities of people who, had proper sanitation. And so they were never exposed to the same level of bacteria and nastiness and filth and viruses that these people were. And so they had much less, they had zero immunity. They had no immunity to it. Their immune systems were compromised. They could not fight it off. So when they got it, it killed them, and it killed them quickly. So that made it that's why it was so devastating when all of these diseases arrive at the same time. I mean, can you imagine being exposed to smallpox, influenza, typhus, whooping cough all at the same time? What are your chances of fighting that off when you have zero immunity to start with? Not good. Not too good, okay? So within 50 years of Christopher Columbus's arrival at the island of Hispaniola, the population of the island went from 1 million people, bless you. So when he got there, 1492, there were 1 million Hispaniolans. 50 years later, what was the population of native Hispaniolans? Anybody want to take a guess? In just 5 decades, 50 years, less than one lifetime. 1 million people to 200. There's more people in this school right now than there was on the entire island. We're talking devastation, folks. And in the centuries after Christopher Columbus's arrival, roughly 90% of all native people were gone. And it's obvious. How many Native American people do you know that are around? I don't know very many. You ever watch the Macy's Day Parade? The Thanksgiving Parade? They have Indians. Those are not Indians. They're like Puerto Ricans. They can't even find Indians to participate in. Okay? They've just been annihilated. Complete annihilation. Over, not just because of this disease, but the policies of America, which we're going to learn about this year. Okay? So, remember yesterday we talked about one of the themes is struggle in America, right? You're going to add Native Americans on that list. From the very first time they encounter European people, they've been struggling, okay? And the struggle still exists today, for sure, okay? And that'll be one of the themes that we talk about. Okay? So, questions on Christopher Columbus and the Columbian Exchange? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. There you go. Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right, so who all wants to get in on this action? All this new stuff, all the squash and pumpkins and all these wonderful things and slaves making tons of money. By the way, they also have a lot of gold. Significant portion of gold. If you're a European nation, you want in on this? Yes, of course you do. And so Spain they were the leader of the world at that time. They had the strongest navy, they had the most wealth, and they were the number one competitor in the New World at the very beginning. But other European nations also wanted to get in on the action. One of those nations was Spain's neighbor to the west, and that nation was Portugal. And the Spanish and the Portuguese, right here's Portugal, it's the purple country to the west of Spain, all right? And the Spanish and the Portuguese were fighting with each other over the New World territory. And because of this disagreement that they were having about who could control what, it led to violence between those two countries. An almost all-out war. So, Both of these countries were very strong in their religious faith. And what was their religion? They were both Catholic nations. Being Catholic nations, the Catholic Church has a person who they turn to answer questions and solve problems. Who is the leader of the Catholic Church? The Pope. And so both Spain and Portugal go to the Pope. And they say, look, Pope, we're about to go to war and fight. Can you mediate this thing? And basically, the Pope is like, I don't have time for your political nonsense. I'm responsible for the salvation of humanity's souls. And so I'm going to put an end to your stupid little political argument. And he goes over to a map that the Spanish and the Portuguese that had brought him. And he takes a pen, a feather quill, and he goes like this. You get this side, you get that side. And that was it. Look, see this big country right here? What country is this? Starts with a B. Brazil. What is the official language of Brazil today? Portuguese. Every other country, what language do they speak? Spanish. Do you know why that is? Because of the Treaty of Tordesillas. That arbitrary, made-up line the Pope drew, stuck. And so this was Portuguese territory, and everything else was Spanish. And it's just because it's just a made-up line. And that line that the Pope draws, that is the Treaty of Tordesillas. Everybody say it with me on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Treaty of Tordesillas. Okay, 3 people said it. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Treaty of Tordesillas. Not Tordesillas. Tordesillas. All right? This treaty was made in 1494. Just 2 years after Columbus arrived, they were already almost at each other's throats. Just 2 years. But it stuck to this very day. Portuguese, Spanish. All these countries are independent now. They don't belong to Spain or Portugal. However, the languages stuck. All right? All right. Christopher Columbus is not the only explorer, obviously, to go to the New World. Over time, the Spanish secured their claim to the New World with the Treaty of Tordesillas, because who gets the better end of that deal? And look at that line. Spain. They get the much more significant portion of land. And so they begin to send special explorers to the New World to conquer. What is the name of a Spanish explorer who goes to conquer and claim land for Spain? Conquistador. All right? There's a lot of conquistadors I'm going to tell you about. So a conquistador is a notable Spanish explorer. And I use the term explorer lightly. Mainly come and conquer through any means necessary. All right, I'm also going to say that these people discovered lots of things. I also use the term discover lightly because it's not like they're the first ever human to set eyes on it. Native Americans had been there long before it was discovered. Okay? All right, the first conquistador is Vasco Núñez Balboa. It's like Rocky. There you go. Does anybody want to take a guess on what Vasco Núñez Balboa discovered? It's pretty big. The Pacific Ocean. He's the first Spanish conquistador to see the Pacific Ocean. Okay. Juan Ponce de Leon. Juan Ponce de Leon. figured somebody might know this one. Juan Ponce de Leon. Does anybody know what he explored? What he's best known for exploring? Florida. He thought Florida was an island. I can't blame him. It's not an island. What is it geographically? A peninsula. So instead of it being surrounded by water on 4 sides, it's only surrounded by 3. Water on 3 sides. But he just explored Florida thinking it was an island. What was he looking for? What were most of these guys looking for? Gold. In search of gold. Francisco Coronado. Francisco Coronado. What was he looking for? Gold. Not just some pocket change. He actually believed that there was an entire city built out of gold. He had a name for it. And that is City of Gold in Spanish. El Dorado. You ever heard El Dorado? Wow. Looking for El Dorado. Unfortunately, he found no city made of gold. Well, what he did find in the American Southwest were adobe villages built by Pueblos and before them Anasazi Indians. Hernando de Soto. Hernando de Soto. He was one of the first Spanish explorers to cross the Mississippi River, which is kind of a big deal. Anybody ever been to the Mississippi River? It's not like the New River or the Greenbrier. It's large. In some places, particularly around New Orleans, you can barely see across it. Okay? But he crossed it. And what was he in search of? Gold. He was particularly evil to Native Americans. Particularly evil. He died of fever. He died of probably typhus of some kind. And when he died, his men were so fearful that his body would be dug up and defiled by the Native Americans, that instead of burying him in a marked grave, they secretly dumped his body in the Mississippi River so they wouldn't dig him up and do bad things to his corpse. That's how evil he was to the Native Americans. Francisco Pizarro. You guys know what he did. I told you in 9th grade, and I told you last year. Where's this? What people were there? The Inca. Do you remember them? Francisco Pizarro. He crushed the Incas. In what present-day country? Peru. But it's really throughout South America. Crushed the Inca. Brought back so much gold and silver that he caused inflation in Spain to increase 500%. I'm going to say that one more time. He brought back so much gold and silver from the Inca that he caused inflation in Spain 500%. Do you guys know how inflation works? I'll try to relate this to you in present-day American terms. Let's say that the United States government just starts printing out money. Just start printing it out. And they increase the supply of money in the United States like 500%. So however much money we have right now, they print 500% more. What happens to the value of your money? It becomes worthless because there's so much of it. I want you to imagine all the gold that the most powerful nation in the world had. The most powerful, wealthiest nation in the world. I want you to imagine how much they had. He brought back 500% that. Is that a lot? Wasn't just a couple boatloads, was it? A lot. In fact, even though he was so successful and doing exactly what he was doing, he might be one of the people most responsible for the decline of the Spanish Empire because their money became worthless. They had so much gold. You would never think that was a problem. Well, inflation is bad for economies. It's bad for working people. It's bad for everybody. All right? So, he was pretty good at it. And probably the most notable of the Spanish explorers, Hernán Cortés. And I will tell you all about Hernán Cortés tomorrow because I want to try to upload this. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so I will wrap that up today. And if anybody has any questions or problems, feel free to write me on Schoology. I hope you guys won't be back for a couple days, right? Okay, so make sure you read chapters 1 and 2.